Yo. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, the computer straight up crashed. Must have been a blender and streaming at the same time thing. So I'm just gonna leave off right where I was because luckily I saved and it didn't completely crash. So here we are again. I'm sorry about that to all of you that lost that stream there, but what can I do? Streaming does crash sometimes. Okay, so moving on. Just gonna keep going with this shirt here. So similarly, I'm going to bring this back into edit mode. Edge mode, a loop cut. And actually, I'm gonna go into, yep, and then I'm gonna do the GG and move that up to the top there. I'm gonna come back out. Oops, you know, I'm gonna make both of these the same object too now. Actually, no, not quite yet. I'm just gonna select both of them. Do that. There we go. There we go. Pretty happy with that. Check my reference again real fast. Again, anyone just hopping in, I know the stream just ended. I crashed, so yeah, I just started it back up and hope for the best. Just gonna truck along here and okay. So I'm pretty damn happy with where that's at. So what I'm gonna do is apply these modifiers now. Oh. That's interesting. Why is that curving like that? I don't have snapping on. Interesting. Why would it be doing that? Well, that's fine. I don't know why it's doing that, but I'm gonna let it do it. And there we are. Now I'm going to do control join and make those one single object. I'm going to bring it into edit mode again, and I'm going to go into vertice mode, and here's where proportional editing will be very useful. And you can see you can adjust this circle accordingly as you edit. I'm gonna sort of just kind of folding this over. I like moving the there you go. Let me just come over a little bit. I like moving the size of the circle as I edit. You can just kind of see the influence of it. Oh, and same thing here. I'm going to just pull this out a little bit. Just like so. Like there. Cool. I'm pretty happy with that. Just gonna double check my reference again. Cool. Now I'll just make the buttons. I'm gonna save my project since we're very prone to crashing here. obviously my computer doesn't like streaming and doing 3D at the same time, but it's impressive that it's holding it together somewhat. So one thing about Blender is you have this thing called the 3D cursor, and if you hold shift and right click, you can put it wherever you want, and normally it defaults by placing itself on top of whatever mesh you're clicking. So if like you're like that and you click there, it's gonna be like on top of the head. So that's useful when you want to like place mesh as close as you can get it before you really gotta tweak it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna do a cube for my button, and I'm gonna scale it down. A cube, you say, why? Well, because modifiers, that's why. Control 2 is a shortcut for adding a subdivision surface modifier really fast. The other way, if I undid that, is you can always just go to the modifier drop-down menu and grab a subdivision surface from there. But in the world of Blender, I like to try to get as many hotkeys as I can, so Control 2. And I believe that goes all the way up to Control 5, increasing the number of subdivisions here. So as you can see, I did Control 2, and it gives me 2 subdivisions. If I did Control 1, it should give me 1 subdivision, yes. Render basically is how much it's going to subdivide after you export it. The viewport level is how much it's dividing it in front of you here. And I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna click the cage box. Oh, and here's another thing. When you have a object like this, there's an auto smoothing option you can turn on by right clicking, and it will make it, it will kind of pseudo smooth it for you, kind of like sand it out. I'm gonna isolate this object and I'm gonna go into face mode here. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on the strict side of it and I'm just gonna squish it down like that. Actually, I'm gonna turn on proportional editing and then I'm gonna squish it down to about that. And that's our button. Easy as that. And the reason why I'm gonna set the geometry to origin to geometry. And just replugging in my computer here. And there's the button. I'm gonna rotate it slightly a little bit more. That way too. Yeah, okay. 1 for front view. Shift D to duplicate. G, Y, and then Y again. Oops. I'll just go to the side view and move it manually. Sometimes not everything goes your way. Just like that. I'm going to duplicate again and put my third button there. Actually, this button tends to be a little bit more towards the top. Where's that button? It's hidden. The button's a little bit too high, right? Move it there. And I'm gonna select all of them and I'm gonna scale them up just slightly. There we go. Just inset them a little bit there. All right. Now we have our collar and buttons. It's a little bit of a process, but not bad. It's one of the faster ways to do it. I'm gonna go grab this collar again. I'm gonna lift it a little up here, just like that, and great. Okay, so now last thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna save in case I crash again. Edit mode on this shirt, and I'm gonna loop cut right here and slide it down to the edge like so. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side, slide it down to the edge about there. And the same thing right here. And I'm gonna slide it down to the edge about there. Okay. Now I'm gonna go into face mode, and I'm going to hold Alt and select a loop. And then I am going to press right click and extrude faces along normals. And I'm just going to widen that a little bit there, like that. Just kind of like the look of it, kind of puffing up on the edge a little bit. Same thing here, edge select, or loop select. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm holding space. Right click, extrude along normals, and just a little bit of a bevel increase there, just like that. Same thing with this loop, Alt select, right click, extrude face along normals, and just a little lip, just like that. And there we go. I would call that the long sleeve polo we just made. So it's time to color it. So I'm going to save, and what we have to do now is apply all our modifiers before we UV map it. So I'm going to select anything that has a modifier on it, and I am going to, oh, first of all, always apply your transform. So I'm going to select everything here, and Control A, apply all transforms. There we go. Now I am going to apply my modifiers. And the way the applying of the modifiers works is a couple ways, but this way is one of the easy ways, and you can just do Control A by hovering your mouse over which modifier that you want to apply. So I'll apply that one, and then that one. And it does matter which order you apply them. So be careful of that. And to show you, if I apply this one first, watch what happens. You can see it'll go back to that really harsh edge. Because what's happening is it's applying the subdivision before it smooths it, and we don't want that. Shade to smooth, and it also matters what order you have your modifiers in the stack as well. So apply modifier, apply modifier. That one I already applied. Apply modifier, apply modifier, apply modifier. And we should be good. All the modifiers are applied. So now our mesh is actually what it is. And if you look, we can go into the collar, and it's actually its own mesh now. And it has extra vertices, and you can see how it's its own thing, which is cool. Okay. Anyway, going back out of single mode, whatever it's called, isolation mode, I think it is. And now we can combine it all into one object. When you try to combine a bunch of objects together before you've applied your modifiers, weird things can happen. And what happens is it'll end up applying a modifier from one thing to another thing. And the way you know is when you select more than one object, you'll see two different colors. You'll see a dark orange and a bright orange. The light orange is your active object, and the other ones are sort of the children to it, the dark orange. So basically, if I select an object, whatever object I select after it is going to become the active one. If I apply it, or if I join them together, whatever modifiers the active one has is going to apply to all the other ones. Quick little lesson there for the modifiers. But we're safe because we've applied all the modifiers, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select everything, including the hands, and I'm going to join them. And as you can see now, our shirt is one complete single mesh. See that? And at this point, it's almost game ready. Except if we put it into our game now, we would have no color and no texture. So that's what we're going to do next. So in order to properly map color onto an object in Blender, you need something called a UV map. And basically what a UV map is it's telling the program where to put the image on top of this. Okay. Now, there's this really handy feature called Smart UV Project, and it saves a lot of time for certain objects. And so pressing A, all the faces you can see, they appear over here, and I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. move it above my head. If I press U and I press Smart UV Project, I can tell it what angle I want the threshold to be. And normally, the bigger you go, the bigger the islands will be. Smaller you go, the smaller the islands will be. I'll explain to you what islands are in a second. And you can see, if I press Smart UV Project, it'll go ahead and do all the work for me and unwrap the shirt over here. And basically, these sections are the map of the color onto here. So if you can see this image underneath it, this purple blob, which isn't the texture I'm using currently, but if it was, it would be picking up that purple. You know, there would be some, this sleeve would be a little bit purple here, and then there'd be black for the rest of the sleeve. And basically it reads, it's taking these faces and reading whatever this image is, and that's what a UV map is. So this is a bit messy for me, and I don't like when I'm really trying to control a nice clean texture. Because what happens is if you start coloring this, you can get weird edges and little spots that happen on the mesh because it's not clean. And it's much more time consuming to do your custom seams on a high poly mesh. That's much more detailed, but because this is a low poly mesh that's clean, it makes custom seaming very fast. And you'll see, if you memorize what this looks like, how much cleaner it comes out. Watch. So I'm gonna go ahead and deselect all these faces here. I'm gonna go to my edge tool, and in the same way you have loop select with faces, you have with edges. And you'll see it'll select a circle around the bottom here, just like that. And I actually don't want that one. I want to get the one that's a little bit more in there. I think it's right there. There it is. And when you're doing, so basically what I'm telling this to do is I'm telling the program where I want it to unwrap the object. And it works like seams. So you'll see kind of in a second. So this is where the first seam is, and you want to hide your seams as best as possible. So I like to hide them in like the armpits underneath here. So I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna edge select this. I'm gonna make that a seam. Oh, I actually deselected this one in the process. Right click, mark as seam, and it'll create a permanent red line there. That's a seam. I'm gonna come to the arm here. I'm gonna loop select around that, and I'm gonna say mark seam. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other arm. I'm gonna mark seam there. I'm gonna go down to the edge here. I'm gonna mark seam there. Same here, mark seam. And just like you'd sort of, if you were cutting open, think of it if you were trying to cut open a tube and you wanted to lay it out flat, right? So my arm's a tube, and I'm gonna go underneath the arm here, and I'm going to control click to take the shortest path. That's another useful tool. So like just like Alt will give you a loop select, if you hold control from a already selected vertex, edge, or face, it will take the shortest path to wherever your mouse is, which is really useful. So right click, mark as seam, and that's how I like to do my arms. A circle seam here, line down the middle, underneath, and you'll see how that unwraps in a second. I'm gonna come back over here to this arm and do the same thing. Yep, control click, follows path, right click, mark seam. There we go. Now, same thing with this collar here. And sometimes you gotta get a little bit more manual with it. So I'm gonna connect to this seam here. And actually, nope, I'm gonna go this way. And control click. Like that. And I'm picking the line underneath the collar because I want it to be hidden. Because you can get edges with seams if you don't do them right. When I first started experimenting with seams, there's some of the things I ran into. So I'm gonna let that hop and just hope it doesn't give me a bad edge. I'm gonna come all the way around this collar. And back into there. And you know, once you get all this set up, it becomes really fun to paint your model. And then I'm gonna reconnect it there, and then I'm gonna mark seam. Okay, and just like cutting in half a tube, I'm going to go from this edge here and control it to there. Nope, not mark sharp. Mark sharp is something else. I'll explain that another time. I'll clear that sharp. Mark seam. Mark sharp has to do with that auto smoothing thing, and I can explain that another time. And for the buttons, we can just press Alt, mark seam, mark seam, mark seam, and pretty happy with that. I'm not gonna bother doing that. And the last line is down here to that. I'm gonna mark seam there, and I'm gonna do a seam here. And you can kind of like develop your own seam style. It happens. Actually, yeah, no, that's fine. I don't care if that's not lined up. That'll be okay. Actually, you know what? It might not. So I'm not gonna risk it. I'll just line it up. Oops. Clear seam. There we go. Mark seam. Okay, now. And that's what it looks like to have your shirt cleanly seamed. So in the same way, we will take all the faces, select them all. And instead of smart UV project, now you can see how this projected last, right? Real messy. You get all these weird sharding chunks. Like you'll get this like single face here, and it makes it so it's weird to color sometimes. And there's a chance I still may get some sharding chunks because I didn't really seam up this complicated section over here too much. But it's in these low poly models. It's more about minimizing those shards. Shardy islands, we can call them. Don't want shardy islands. Anyway, so it's you, and then you do unwrap instead of smart UV project. Just unwrap. And you can see, wow, look how much neater that is, right? Got this nice big panel for my shirt. And that's how I like to do it. And you'll just have a much better, neater experience overall. And some things still get a little bit shardy, like this little thing over here, but it's okay. So another tool, and these are called islands, by the way. That's the technical term for it. Each one of these little things, and you can use the link select tool, which is pressing L to individually select these as well. A also works in this window as well. These are all separate windows in Blender, which is one of the things I really love about the workflow is you can drag any new window wherever you are. So if you're here, you know, I can split this into another new window and it's equivalent, which is nice. So you can really edit. Anyway, if I select all these islands, I have a handy tool in here called Pac Islands. And what this will allow me to do is it'll allow me to choose how it will space the islands in my UV map here. As you can see, I slide it, it will go larger and larger of the spaces in between. What I want to do is have it just a little bit separated, nothing crazy, just like that. And you can see these got shardy here. If I click this button too, it's really handy in figuring out what got shardy. So you can turn this on and basically anything I select here will show up selecting here. Now, I'm actually pretty okay with that because they're so tiny and I don't have to worry about it. But these two right here is something I'd be more concerned about. These two little shards. Because what those end up being are these two little annoying dots in your nice clean texture later on. And yeah, don't want that to happen. So what I'm gonna do is when you get really tiny islands like this, I like to select them and just kind of come in here and bring them over, rotate, and just scale them up a little bit because they're gonna grab more of this image texture underneath. I'm gonna select these tiny little guys and I'm gonna scale them up too. Bring them a little closer together. Scale them up again. And that'll be good. Come in here. I'm gonna scale up these shards to about that size, and then the same thing with these. And we are almost set up. There we go. Cool. I'm gonna press save, and our polo shirt is officially UV unwrapped, and as you can see, it's there. Oh, is there another shard there? Nope, that's fine. Okay. And to see where your UV maps are, you can actually have more than one UV map on an object, and you can add and subtract them here and make them active or inactive. Excuse me. We won't have to be doing that here, but that's for another tutorial or another time. So, the last thing we have to do before we can color this is we have to come out of edit mode, select our long sleeve polo, and then we have to add a material to it. So we come to the material tab here and we press plus and another plus, because I've been adding 2 materials to these objects. One, because we're gonna have the ability to change your skin color in the game, so it was just something I had to do on the development end to separate those materials, basically, so that the game developers can program the hand color separate from the shirt. So that's a little more complicated, don't need to get into it, but that's basically the gist of it. So for this one, I'm not going to make a new material. I'm going to select this already existing one that I made called Skin Matte. And basically, you can assign materials to individual faces in Blender, which is really nice. So I'm going to use the link select tool because it's really handy for selecting things you know have already been meshes before, and it will single them out like that. Under the material menu here, I have assign, select, and deselect. Once I have selected Skin Matte, which is my material I have for the hands here, I can select assign. If I click assign, it is now assigned to just the faces on the hand. And earlier when I switched into solid mode to model, you'll see that it's still gray. But if I go to material mode, you'll now see the whole thing turned yellow. Why is that? Why not just the hands? Why? Well, let me show you why. For whatever reason, until you have 2 materials on something, it just selects it all. So you gotta come back, deselect the hands, select the shirt, and I have to go in here and select the buttons. Because in edit mode, everything still stays separated, even if you join it as a mesh in object mode. Which is nice, I like that. Especially with link select. So with the shirt selected, apparently, oh, I didn't know that to know. Seams apparently separate your selections too. Well, that's nice to know. That's fun. I can see how that works with UV unwrapping. Yeah, you learn something every time. Anyway, in the same way, I'm going to add a new material here, and then I'm going to assign. And you can see now the shirt turns white, which is just the indication that this has no material yet, which Blender just throws in a default white color at a certain roughness. So without further ado, I'm going to label this material long sleeve polo mat. It's just kind of the way I've been rolling with my organization. And now it has material. It has material for the hands and it has a material for the shirt. And I'm going to save there. Now, last thing we have to do is we have to create a image texture to save our colors to, so that the UV map can read the colors, which is this picture here, but this isn't for this shirt. This is for a different shirt that I was working on before. So by pressing Control Space, we can enlarge one of these work areas here, and this is our node area. This is our material nodes, or whatever you want to call it. Shader graph is the proper name, actually. There's also geometry nodes, which is a whole other procedural way of modeling, which is really cool. That's a whole other complicated thing we're not getting into today, but there's geometry nodes and there's shader graph material nodes, and we're in the material version. So Shift A, I can search for one of the many hundreds of nodes here. It's basically visual programming, visual coding. And I'll type in image texture, and we get this node here. I'm gonna take the color, I'm gonna plug it into our principled BSDF, and I'm gonna come back out by using Control Space and click New. I am going to call this. We'll start with black color, so black long sleeve polo, diffuse, and this is the just organized file names. The normal name for a JPEG file that is just for the color of the object is the diffuse. So, in other words, albedo or base color. Those are some of the other words that get tossed around in other programs, but they all mean the same thing. I'm gonna up my resolution of the texture to 2048 by 2048 because I've just been working with that size. I like that size. It's not too big, it's not too small. Yeah, so we have that set up. We have to have this selected. You can select individual nodes, and that makes them active. Basically, telling Blender, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm painting. So I want it to paint that texture. So I select that texture. Now I have to find it here. It's called black long sleeve polo. I can search. There it is, black long sleeve polo. There it is, nothing colored in. That's why it's appearing black. Because if you see that UV map's just laying over that black, just like that. But I don't want it to be pitch black. I want it to be like a little bit off black. So I'm still gonna color it. So the last step is we have to save this image into our hard drive here. So I already have a long sleeve shorts file here, and I have to go ahead and make a folder for this normal long sleeve. I've already finished my normal long sleeve. You can see I have all the colors here. I'm just gonna go ahead and move that into that folder, or not. I think I have to do it. Yeah, it's not. 1 second. I have to do it in like my actual file explorer. Remember shirts. There we go. So I'm just gonna move those in here. I'm gonna create a new folder called long sleeve polo, and that should be here now when I save this image. Long sleeve polo, black long sleeve polo diffuse. Boom. Okay, so now we're there. Cool. Here's the fun part. Now that's like all the setup for coloring a mesh, and you have to do that for all of them, and it gets faster and faster. So I really like how the seams separate like that. I did not know that before. That's nice. So there's even more of a reason to do your manual seams, because now I can color theme this polo. You know, I could make the shirt, the sleeves a different color than the collar, than the everything else, which is really awesome and customizable. I actually think I will do a theme like this for the shirt to just change it up. Anyway, so we'll start with black. I think I'm gonna make the buttons. Actually, no. What color are buttons on a black polo tee normally? White, off-white. That's a cool theme. I like that. All right, we'll go with that, just so I can show you how you can do the different colors. We'll end there. And then we'll do one color theme, and then, you know, I'm not gonna go ahead and do the rest. I do about 10 different color themes for each one. So I'll just show you how to color one, and then, you know, you just rinse and repeat 100 times for the other colors. So the one I was just looking at on the internet, I liked it. It kept the sleeve and the shirt the same, but it changed the color of this. So the collar was different and the buttons were different. That's it. So what's cool about so now we go into texture paint mode. There's a couple different painting modes. There's vertex paint, texture paint, and weight paint. Texture paint is the one that we'll be using because we're painting a texture. Make sure that's selected. Now, texture paint mode goes smoothly in and out of edit mode when I press tab, which is great workflow because when you're in edit mode, you can select faces, go back in to texture paint mode, and then you can press M for mask. Okay, it will activate a mask around everything that you did not have selected. So now I can just take the bucket paint tool, and this saves a buttload of time, let me tell you. And pick an off-white here. And click. And there you go. I press M and I can see how that was perfectly colored for me. Just like that. And you can see over here how it's appeared on the map. To set it in stone, you have to go ahead and save your image again. And you will see that now that has appeared. I'm gonna go ahead though now and go back to my edit mode from texture paint and introduce to you another very useful hotkey, which is Control I. Basically, it inverts your selection. So whatever you have selected, it just selects everything else. It's just a fast tool, saves time. Boom. Now I have everything but the buttons and the color selected. I just go back to texture paint mode, I press M, and now you can't see it, but the collar is masked too. And if you want to know if your mask is on or off, there's this little button up here on top, and you'll see that'll be highlighted or not. So we have our mask turned on, we go to bucket tool, and I'm just basically going to pick a little bit less of a black. Like that. Oh, I've gone and messed up because our hands are still selected on accident. So I'm actually going to do that, and I'm just going to actually manually select this shirt. There we go. Back to texture. And now we can see it's added that off gray. And it's appeared over here too. See that? Which kind of still looks black, doesn't it? I'm going to take that, I'm going to save as to the image. And there you have it. That is how you model a shirt around a pre-existing model to clothe it already. And I'll just unhide that, and you can see how we've made a little polo. And it's pretty cool, right? Here's the other long sleeve shirt, just the normal one. And there's the polo. And when I sit down tomorrow to work, I will be just doing different color themes, you know, like green polo, black polo, red polo, white polo. And yeah, that's it. That's how you model a shirt. That's pretty much it. And when you would send this out to your game team, basically, you would just export as an FBX. Oh! I'm glad I said that, because I just forgot about one thing to make sure of. Now, I already know it works because I've gone through this process 100 times already. But basically, you just have to make sure that your shirt is weight painted to the rig. And I'm not going to explain what a rig is and what... or I'm not going to go into rigging right now, but I'll just show you what it looks like to weight paint. And basically, when you're animating a 3D model, they all have something called an armature hidden inside of them. And I'm going to make it visible. You just can't see it right now. It's actually inside of him. I can select this little check in front box, and it will make it so the skeleton will always appear in front. So basically, this is so you can pose your model. If I go into pose mode, you can see the shirt will stretch and bend with my character. Everything will. And you know, this is working now because I already have it. I already have it set up. But basically, I can select all these and do Alt R to reset the rotation and the area, and that's a nice hotkey too. So getting back out of pose mode. Pose mode is basically just the mode that lets you move your character around. I'm going to select the armature and then select the thing that I want to weight paint, and that's the order that you have to select it in. You have to have the object you're weight painting, the active selection. So you do Control Tab and you go into weight paint here. You can go into weight paint by just clicking up here too, but I've just gotten used to the hotkeys and I like using the hotkeys. So Control Tab and weight paint, which is also 7. So I just press Control Tab 7, and it'll turn blue. And basically, blue is no weight and red is full weight. And all that means is if I go here and control click on each bone, you'll see it will show the weight it has on the mesh for each bone. And I can go through and click and see how essentially the bones are grabbing my character. So this one here only affects this part of the arm, and you can see where it's the most red affects it the most. It has the most influence on those vertices, and bones work through vertices. That's what they're grabbing onto essentially. They're not grabbing onto the faces or edges. It's vertice based. And I don't need to touch this. It's already weight painted, because luckily in Blender, any object you copy, it transfers over the vertex information, which is over here. And the vertex information is just a fancy thing for saying this model is parented to this armature. And if you duplicate it, it'll have the same vertex information, which is very, very useful. Because I would have to individually weight paint each one of these shirts every time I modeled them. But just to show you, anyway, if I go into the weight paint mode here, and let's say like this one was wrong, right? And you have all these paint tools here. Like one I really like is this one here. It's the average tool, so it'll average the amount of weight in this area, which like here I would say is a little bit harsh. You generally want it in organic, mushy type of models to be smooth like this and kind of feather out like that. Like see how that's a nice gradient? Because that way when this arm stretches, it'll still pull a little bit on the shirt, but it won't pull like an insane amount on the shirt. If this was red, like here, I'll show you, watch. If this was red, right? I'll go to my brush. Let's just put like, I'm just gonna put like a red dot here. And you can paint where you want it to grab. So now this arm bone is grabbing this part of the shirt just as hard as this arm, and you'll see here. Watch, I'll go to pose mode. Watch when I move this arm now. See? It's gonna pull out that weird part of the shirt that I painted red, and we don't want that, right? So I'm just gonna go back to weight paint mode, and I'm just gonna undo that. And basically that's what weight paint mode is. It's really simple. It's just fixing how your armature grabs your character, and a lot of the times you'll find yourself in weight paint mode fixing other people's models, because in the game industry you'll be buying a lot of models that are already pre-built, and you'll have to fix them because they'll already have rigs on them. And often you'll go to put it in the program, and the guy will jump, but like his left leg will stretch up with his arm, and you'll have to go and fix that. So that's what weight painting is. And each shirt I just go in and I just make sure that everything's looking normal, which it is. Everything's right on point, and it should be fine. And it's the other reason why we make it into one model, because what happens is in pose mode, when you start stretching, like when you start getting really crazy stretch angles like this, which a human's arm doesn't go that way, but let's say it did. If this wasn't one mesh, like if there was a body underneath this shirt, it would be clipping through the shirt, and it would look really bad. So that's just preventing that, basically. So I'm gonna reset the rotation, Alt G, Alt R. Location and rotation. And there you have it. That's it. That's pretty much it. We have our polo tee designed for tonight, and the fast part's coloring it. I already have it all set up. And there you go. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. And thanks for everyone that watched the stream earlier too on the sketches. And yeah, if you found this interesting, if you want to see more 3D stuff, let me know. This was like the first 3D stream I've ever done, so I don't know if this is like cool to watch as like my paintings and stuff too, but figured I'd try it, show you a little bit of this world that I work in, and kind of how I go about it, and maybe if you're a Blender user, you've learned something yourself too, and that makes me happy as well. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next stream. Thank you so much.